Hello and welcome. I am here with Dr. Huma Pierce. Huma, how are you doing today?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and specifically what type of person might be looking for your type of care.
Sure. My name is Dr. Huma Pierce. I am a chiropractic physician. I have been one since 2001. Went to New York Chiropractic College. After a little stint in the Navy, I was a naval officer, speak 5 languages, and did a translation service as well as boarding party operations in the Gulf for 5 coalition navies at the time. So I have a little bit of leadership experience. And as a result, I have a private practice that I share with my husband, who is also a chiropractor, Dr. Christopher Pierce. And no, we haven't killed each other yet, but it's been 23 years that we've been in practice together. I think the best fit for someone who would want to be in our practice is someone who doesn't mind a mom and pop shop, more of a, comforting, listening to you, taking the time to understand what exactly has happened in your life, and put that together with a little bit of the naval experience I've had. Really, it's a VA veteran. So someone who has served or is currently serving, those people, we seem to get you guys. And so that caring environment, but in a systematic, loving way where we care for you because some of us have been there and we did it. So I think that would be the best patient in our office, the one who would get the most out of our type of care, which is a structurally based care that goes towards a normal spinal model. So we're very structurally based, less sort of energy work, but more returning your body to its natural state with a lot of science behind it.
So by structural based, you mean more like the musculoskeletal structure? Or what do you mean by that?
Yeah, spinal structure, really. It's so there's a normal spinal model. You're straight from the front, balanced shoulders, balanced hips, leg length's the same, arches in your feet the same height. When you turn to the side, what you're looking for is a half circle in your neck, an egg shape for your thoracic cage or where your heart and lungs live. And then the lumbar spine is that half egg shape flipped over with a 40-degree forward tilt from the side, if I was facing this way, of your sacrum, in which case 70% of your body weight will sit on the facet joints and 30% will sit on the disc. So the curve looks like that. That's what your discs are. Facing forward, this is your backside. So that is the normal spinal model. There's a standard deviation of plus or minus 8 degrees. So there's variability depending upon all sorts of things, weight, height, but we try our very best to help you return to that normal spinal model through chiropractic care, through traction sometimes if necessary. And it also depends on the level of spinal degeneration and traumas that have occurred in your life. So that's it. That's what we do.
Thank you for explaining that. You mentioned being a naval officer in the Gulf, specifically a translator. What languages do you speak?
Obviously English, not well, but English, French, Urdu, Punjabi, and Hindi. All the Indus languages. Yeah. So most of the merchantmen that were coming into the Gulf delivering foodstuff and supplies to Iraq at the time, because this is in between the 2 wars, they all spoke Western Indian languages. And I grew up in Toronto, and in Toronto, it's a very multicultural city. So somebody across from me was a Punjabi speaker, somebody next door. We had Trinidadians, we had Trinis, we had everyone. And so for me, being my background is Pakistani. Both of my parents were born in Lahore, Pakistan. And the traditional route, which is you go from Lahore, Pakistan to England, and then from London, England, which is where I was born, you go to Toronto, which is where I went to school and joined the Navy. And so as a result, there is also a lot of crossover between Hindi and Urdu. So Hindi comes from more of the eastern side of India, and it just grew into Pakistan. And then Urdu comes from more of a Arabic side of the world, and that met in the Indus Valley like that. And so there's a lot of words that cross over back and forth. And so it was pretty easy for me to be able to go back and forth between those languages. I would get on to a ship. First, I would track it because I was a naval officer. I'd have to track it, you know, and we used radar back then. And so we would track them. Then I would hail them, put them into the holding area, and then whatever naval ship was in the area, we all collaborated and did the boarding party operation. So I've worked with the Dutch, English, the French, the Americans, the Canadians, and I think I said British. So, you know, 5 navies. And so that was a little juggling, but fun. You want to hear a really cool story of just one trip that I did? That was really cool. I didn't even leave the ship. So I did a lot of officer exchanges. And so an officer exchanges, they give us one of yours, and our ship gives one of ours. So I was the one usually that ended up going to other ships. And so I spent some time on the Paula Foster, and it seems to me that the people that have the most time on a ship are the aviators. And so I learned a lot of great card tricks, but that proved to be really helpful later on. We got a communique asking for my translation services for a helicopter that had found a contact outside of the normal routes. And so they projected my voice through the helicopter speaker. And I would just be like, okay, boys, tell me what's going on. Because I knew them all at this point. And they would tell me what they were doing, and they said, oh yeah, they're doing it. Looks like they're all moving to the forecastle. Looks like they're, the captain's going to the wheelhouse, all the things, and they would just explain to me what was going on. And then I would speak the commands that were necessary in order for them to get enough time for, at that time it was USS Fitzgerald, to get into that area because they were faster than us. So there you go. I did that from 200 miles away. 200 nautical miles away. That was pretty cool. I thought that was a cool story.
So you're saying you're an international badass.
I'm saying there's lots of recordings that, that are out there of my voice that people would send back on channel 11. It was really weird. But yes, you could say I'm mildly famous from 1997.
That's awesome. I actually also did work in the Air Force as an Arabic translator, so we didn't quite overlap there, but we were right next to each other.
That's cool. Yeah. The Farsi speakers were pretty cool too.
Yeah. So, international badass, centered in the Gulf.
Yeah.
Moving to the Pacific Northwest and working as a chiropractor. How did that happen?
The connection. So I was doing a 4-ship intervention. I was up for probably 28 hours. So what that means is that I had hailed 4 different ships, got them all to the holding area so that 4 different navies could get together and basically start the boarding party operations and check their paperwork and do all that sort of thing. I was shuttled by Rib, Zodiac Rib, in between these 4 ships, and so made sure that everybody felt comfortable, because the biggest thing with this was, here you are getting boarded, a naval ship comes right up to you, and there's this little girl gets out and starts yipping and telling everybody what to do. And so my biggest job that I thought for myself was to, first identify with them culturally, and then be able to speak to them in the voice of how they would be instantly, they felt a camaraderie with me. Like I was that one person that they could talk to so that they wouldn't feel that they were being boarded by a Canadian ship. But I digress. So after that huge intervention, right? Many hours, I still had to stand watch, which sucked. And then after that, I was just super tired. And I was like, oh my God, I was on the chart table like this, charting. And a summer holiday after dinner sailor, we like to call them shads, not the same as the fish here in Oregon, but a shad was on board, which is not somebody who was in the regular force, but a reservist. And they were coming to train in the ops room. And they happened to be a chiropractor as well. And so he's like, oh, you're so tired. Let me, he said at the time, let me crack your back, see how that feels. And I'm just like, what is this? And so I got adjusted, thoracic cage, one of these, all the back, standing up. And it was a life-changing, energy-boosting, adrenal rush. And I thought I was going to sleep for like 3 days after that. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. So, I got online immediately. We had sat nav back then. You had 5 minutes to go ahead and like email whoever. So I got on the, I think it was Netscape or something, and typed in crack. How can I get some crack? And it was, oh, you could be a PT, an orthopedist, you could be a chiropractor, you could be all these things. And so that was the beginning of how the connection is from the Persian Gulf to Portland. I didn't go to school in Portland. What I did first is I visited a chiropractor that was in practice, old guy, 25 years, been doing it forever, good hands, the whole thing. And then I also visited a chiropractor that had just become a chiropractor, recent graduate. Like, he had this old guy come into his office and he was like, came in like this, right? Got adjusted. And the sound was so horrible, I thought I was going to pass out. I literally felt the heat, because this was a really old guy and he was very like dry bones and it sounded so awful. I said, I'll be right back. And I ran into the bathroom, threw some water on my face and was like, if I don't go back out there, I'm not going to do this. And I just remembered how I felt and how my body had changed in an instant. And I was just like, okay, by the time I got back out there, Mr. who came in like this, bent at a 90-degree angle, was up and hugging the chiropractor. And I was like, oh my gosh, nobody dies. People hug you after. And I just remembered again just how good I felt. And so I was just like, there's something to this. I think I'm going to apply to chiropractic college. And rolling enrollment is what I needed, because this is like, I think this was in July, and I'd already missed, the Toronto school admissions. I'd already missed all these different places, but New York Chiropractic College had rolling admissions. And so I ended up going there to New York Chiropractic College, which is where I met my husband the first day at school.
Serendipity.
Yeah, very much so. When you're open to the universe provides.
So, and that led to, I assume you started practice in New York, or did you move around the States a bit before you got to the Pacific Northwest, or did you jump straight over here?
So when Christopher and I first met, 2 weeks later we dated, 2 months later we moved in together, and 2 years later, during school, we got married while everybody else was getting divorced, incidentally. So we put a big map up of the United States on the wall and put Post-it notes up with pro on one side, con on the other, and a line down the center. And no one had to explain why they ticked a certain city, because we put it on all sorts of different cities all over the United States. Places we thought were cool. I mean, I'm originally from Toronto, so we had Toronto on there. We had Vancouver on there. We had Homa, Alabama, just because, why not? My name's Homa. Why not Homa, Alabama, right? And then we just ticked, independently. Christopher would do it. I would do it. And then when the cons outweighed the pros, boom, that city got pulled off. Portland was left standing. And I had a tie to Portland because I sailed here in 1994 on the HMCS de la Reine for the Rose Festival. Got off the boat, looked around and thought, wow, what a great place for kids. You got the mountain, you got the beach, you know what I mean? So, and then no word of a lie, 10 years later, bang, Aiden was born in Portland, Oregon.
That's awesome. So where are you at now in your practice? Do you still practice the thing that started you off, your first love, or has it evolved a little bit since then?
Our practice has gone through major changes. Our practice has evolved with the times, so to speak. We are chiropractic biophysics physicians. We are still very much working towards a normal spinal model. But I've found that we both found that as we've gotten older, we just connect better with veterans, with people who have had real life experiences, people who are in need of care, but, you know, they serve their country, so they deserve all the best kind of care possible. So it's been fun. It's been a very different experience than just taking care of, let's say, you know, children or taking care of the elderly, which is what we did a lot for. We did a lot of OHP type of work, whereas like a lot of low income individuals that needed help. Veterans are a diverse group. I would say it's almost 50-50 lower income versus individuals who really don't fit that bill anymore. But with the lower income individuals, the veterans, I mean, we've given them furniture, we've helped them move, we hired them on to build benches for us for outside of the office, and you know, I still have a patient from about, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. Every so often he just sends me jokes. He texts me jokes. So as a part of our practice, as you may have noticed, or people they have my cell phone. You have my cell phone, and I do answer it, and I do text you right back. And so that level of service, you know, it's not you have to call in to maybe, you know, some hospital systems, which will remain unnamed, that you call into and you're just going through waiting and loops and no answers and we don't know and let me transfer you. That never happens with us. So I think that level of service is something that it's a lost art, but I think it's starting to come back with us. So the practice is
definitely think people are starting to realize the limitations of the technology when it comes to the person-to-person interaction. There's only so much automation you can do when it comes to sitting down with the client, and it's incredibly important, and it's becoming something that distinguishes businesses more and more from other companies that just go the full automation route. That having that personal touch is something that's really important, and it's something you guys do well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And there was a big transition during COVID, right? So how am I supposed to run a chiropractic office when I can't put my hands on the patient?
Very hands-on in a 6 feet away environment.
Exactly. So we can watch you do your exercises. Yay. You know what I mean? So it was very disconnecting. And I think since that time period, I believe that time period has changed all practitioners to be at least interested in their patient to the point of being there as a human, as you had mentioned. It's a big deal.
Absolutely. So if you had, I want to ask you this question, and I'm very interested to hear the answer. So if you had all the money and time in the world to pursue your career, your dream in this area of healership, where would you go and what would you do with it?
That's a great question. You know, I don't think I would change very much. I think I would continue to follow more side projects, like the one that I have, which is I invented actually, a dog brace for my dog when he injured his back and he started dragging his legs, and I didn't want to let him go after the veterinarian said that he had maybe 2 years left. I didn't take no for an answer, so to speak, and I invented a brace for him. And so what I've noticed is the crossover between my practice and my new project is that I had a veteran come in whose cat had died, and I just saw him. He was wrecked. That cat was everything to him. And whereas my dog was is everything to me, because he was 13 when he hurt himself, and now he's just right over here and 18 and a half, walking himself, you know. That veteran really made me feel more closely aligned to why I was put on the earth. Like, this product or project is my love language to the world, to keep every single human's pet with them so that they feel that unconditional love and emotional connection for longer, for as long as possible. I'm actually writing a book now. It's going to be called The 20-Year Dog.
That's amazing. And that is an incredible connection there between your history in the military and your work in the chiropractic, and then it sounds like a very related work, but more focused on animals, and how that came together with that connection of helping veterans out and helping the animals out as well. And my wife, who's also a veteran, actually she's in the reserves currently, but she's an Army intelligence officer, and she's shared with me about her dog who died prior to our getting together, but her dog was so close to her, and she describes her dog as like the first person who ever truly loved her. And that connection, especially, I think, having a traumatic past, it's incredibly important to be able to make a connection like that and learn, as my wife puts it, learn what love is from her dog. And then as your work is enabling that connection to continue and even deepen and extend that beyond what would normally be considered a fatal injury, and how it's such a beautiful work and a beautiful connection between all those different points of your story, and how this is something that, like you said, this may be why you were put here on earth. It's such a beautiful story.
It's definitely something that I take very seriously. It's something that is so important to me that I believe it is a possible way to bring about world peace, bring about all the bigger things out there by keeping everyone's unconditional love with them, to the point where there's less bitterness. Even if there's bitterness in the world, you come home to your dog and it just looks at you as if you were the most amazing, important, fulfilling thing in its life, which you are.
Yeah.
And it's not fake. It's not something where all they want is food. Maybe it's a little of that, but there's definitely that true, unconditional, purest bond that if we had that, a little bit of that in our interactions with each other, that would be amazing. I have friends that are of all different vocations, types, political affiliations, and all of them. And it's just that interpersonal connection that we have through our dogs. That's world peace in and of itself.
It really is. I think it's something that a lot of people aren't really aware of, or the awareness is growing more and more, but so many of the issues that we deal in today's society and international society, I think, could really be boiled down to the psychological health of the individual. and a society is just the conglomerate of many individuals and all those and their interactions and all of that history together. But if we could establish that sense of deep, intimate, like profound sense of love, unconditional love and connection, and have someone's heart and psyche be affected by that, and just have it shaped by that context and that type of relationship, that would have ripple effects that would spread around the world.
Yeah, I agree. And that's what I try to bring with this company, luckyandloyal.com, is I 100% am committed to not giving up at all on your dog, or your, in this instance, wolf, pig, cow, cat, oh, and goat. Those are the animals that we've braced with our products, but it's more than just returning animals to symmetry and creating a healthful environment in the most natural, uninvasive way, which kind of follows my credo for my whole life. I didn't even know that I was this much of a naturalist even as a child, but there it is. It's the full alignment with the universe. I feel that now, and I'm trying to bring that into the greater part of the world. To be honest, my vision is to create a world where euthanasias are almost next to nil. So that's the idea.
It's a beautiful vision, and that feeling of the connection to something the higher and your sense of your purpose, and that leading to this is your destiny and this is where you're going, and that symmetry, as you called it, and that it's a beautiful thing that I think so many people are looking for, and it's such a beautiful thing that you found it. Could you take just a minute and describe how your brace works for those who are like unaware?
Sure. So the brace itself is a two-part system. It's a vest and it is a sleeve system. The sleeves can be either in the front or the back. In this instance, I'll discuss the back legs, because those are the most common legs that end up going out in a dog, we'll say for now. This can apply to other animals as well. But it is a sleeve that is a continuous unit that actually holds both legs. And what it does is it creates a resistance against muscle movement. And it acts like a second layer of muscle for the back legs. It's anchored at the sacrum or the low back of the dog. So it gives the dog rocket boosting availability at any time. When it's ready to get up and go, the Newtonian physics behind it is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So it concentrically pushes the dog's legs forward and allows the dog to feel supported. It allows them to have an extra layer of muscle. It also allows for their gait, which is a four-legged event normally, to return to symmetry because the weaker leg now can catch up. The leg that's bearing all the weight now can shift that back over to the weaker leg. And so you don't get that second injury in the right side. If you've blown a CCL in the one knee, the other knee is typically going to be the one that's going to end up bearing the weight and as a result becoming at risk for failure. And what happens there with the brace when you put it on? It returns to symmetry, and as a result, equal distribution of the dog's weight is returned. And that affects everything from their emotional well-being, their mental health, their digestive system is very interconnected to motion, especially since they're not bipedal, so they're not in against gravity where their organs are packed on each other. They're this way, a 90-degree rotation and horizontal. So all of their organs are doing what? Independently hanging. So if they don't move in symmetry or move in a way that allows their system to process normally, there you go. That is actually the premise of my book. The 20-year dog. So yeah, that's how it works.
That's a genius solution, and it's all physics. It's all just putting the right levers in the right places.
Literally.
So what might someone be observing in their pet, or what might their pet be struggling with that would clue someone into that they need this sort of brace?
Oh, super simple. Sadly, the statistics and the research is showing that dogs, in this instance, are susceptible to arthritis after the age of 4. Remember, one
That's really
human
young.
year, yeah. Well, young, yes, but their insides aren't as young. They age 7 times faster than we do. So that's a lot of aging in a short period of time. So start looking at your pet when they hit that 4-year mark, the 4 to 6 mark, and keep an eye out for things like lying on one side always, not happily getting up, jumping right up. Maybe they get up a little bit slower. Maybe they have some muscle wasting from one side to another, meaning that one side of their leg looks a little skinnier than the other. They are not interested in going on walks as long as they used to. They're you touch their back and they yelp. You see them feeling or looking more tired than usual. Stuff like that, Those are very simple ways to figure that you might want to consider using the Lucky and Loyal brace. Also, I have a list of veterinary conditions that when you take your dog to the veterinarian will either know, that they have panosatitis or something of that nature, that they'll tell you, okay, you're going to want to watch for certain physical movements that are not that are going to creep up on your dog if you don't take care of it earlier than later. My brace works very well in animals that can still stand. If your pet can't stand, I can't help you. So for me, the best bet is to visit the website luckyandloyal.com and just click on the veterinarian's checklist, and it'll tell you exactly what you need to know and what to look for and what to see.
And we will certainly link that website in the description. Thank you for that. I'd like to kind of segue that a little bit over into the human side of things, where what might someone be experiencing to clue them in that they should look into chiropractic?
Chiropractic care? It's almost the same stuff. It's literally, you're tired, you're fatigued, you have pain when you feel pain, but even more so. And again, hitting it early is you might have gone through basic training carrying that 70-pound rucksack on your back. And guess what? You've always felt like one of your legs was off. It just doesn't feel like they were balanced. Or you were a kid and your mom or your dad dropped you on your head. Simple things throughout your life that have caused you to know that something was wrong early, or just recently you were in a car accident. A car accident is the number one way for a person to remove those natural curves in your neck, because you whip them out and your head does this, and suddenly you see people who are always like this and you're like, oh, and then they get older and it gets worse because gravity doesn't quit. Yep, that's it. Totally. But that's it. It's injuries like car accidents, injuries like you were a teenager until you were jumping off a bridge and you didn't do that very well, things of that nature, or you're a child and you had birth trauma. And as a result, your neck is straight. And if you've taken away that 70-30, right, and you've taken away the curve, and as a result, you're putting weight on your discs, and some will fuse and others, you're like, oh, I cracked my own neck. Yeah, sure you do. You need that curve in your neck again, so that the disc spaces are nice and thick and the head or the thorax is weighted on the hard parts of the bones. It's kind of how it works.
Okay. So you mentioned I cracked my own neck, and it's a good point. So what are, if someone's in pain right now, neck pain, back pain, whatever it is, and they can't find peace today, like what would you do? What would you suggest for some things that they can do on their own, in order to kind of get some relief in a healthy way? Because like you said, there are unhealthy ways of getting relief, and there are healthy ways. What are some healthy ways of getting some relief today or this week, if someone's in pain?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, if you're in pain to the point of it disrupting other parts of your life, I highly recommend you see someone in accordance to where that pain is, of course, because let's say you have sinus pain, where we can help you a little bit with sinus pain. It's best to see someone who specializes like an ear, nose, throat. Now, putting that aside, if you're in pain in your spine or your joints, a great way to start is, if you're not allergic to it, omega-3 fatty acids. I know everybody talks about it. Omega-3 fatty acids, blast yourself with that. Take a look at the bottle, make sure you don't overdo it. Otherwise, it really affects your digestive system over time. Like anything, in moderation. Hydration, the discs are you're 90% water, so you might as well refill yourself by keeping up your hydration. Probiotics, prebiotics, all of that stuff. The gut is the number one place where you can eliminate pain. How? By simply having your lymphatic system and drainage occur. Your digestive system is something where it uptakes nutrients into your body, but it also eliminates waste, right? And it's the waste products that, when that builds up, can be a hotbed, so to speak, for inflammation. So movement, again, in a bipedal model, movement is also going to help you eliminate waste better. So if you can get up and walk around when you're at your computer for 8 days or 8 hours a day, you can get up and walk around every 20 to 40 minutes. I know it's probably going to be 40 minutes. That's realistic in our lifestyles right now here in the modern world, so to speak. Everything in moderation is the way to go. I love the Mediterranean diet. It's something that I personally ascribe to. And that is just something that isn't overly meat heavy, isn't under meat heavy, it's just that middle of the road thing. Obviously, your joints are affected by your posture. If you have forward head carriage, you're in front of your computer and doing this all day, you're going to have neck pain. So positioning yourself when you sleep, maintaining the 3 curves in your spine when you sleep on your back or when you turn to the side. I have 2 pillows on my bed, one for lying on my back, and then the other is positioned where I know I love to sleep on my left side. So it's positioned to the point where it's thick enough so it fits this space, right? And so the pillow, when I lie on my back, it's only going to be a little guy, because I'm going to lie on my back like that. So simple things like that. And certainly.
So let's say they're sitting at their desk, they're standing, walking around, and they're sleeping. Those are the 3 main things that a lot of people are going to be spending a lot of time doing. How should someone sit? How should someone stand? And how should someone consider lying down to sleep? What were some posture tips that you would have for that?
Sure. When you're seated at your computer, the best way to maintain your neck posture is to try to have your computer raised a little bit so that the center of the screen is at eye level. That's number 1. Number 2, when you're sitting on your chair, if you have to sit, Standing is always best when you're doing computer work nowadays. Everybody seems to be hot on that, stand up desks. And I know a couple of my patients actually have treadmills, and some of my other patients just use a wobble board and stand on the wobble board in front of your computer. If you're seated, sit on the edge towards a third forward of your chair, and have your knees drop down a little and your heels behind it. So you're sitting not like this, but like this. So that maintains that 40-degree sacral tilt. You got it. I know you were thinking that. So that's the best way to sit. Sleep, like I said, you want to have a more flat pillow if you're a back sleeper. If you're a side sleeper, just measure this from the edge of your shoulder, straight up like that, to your chin. And that space is how thick your pillow should be. It can be soft, it can be, synthetic or feather, it doesn't matter. But as long as that space is maintained so you stay centered and you're not sleeping like this for 8 hours, you know how we all do when we're on a plane. Oh gosh, it's awful, right?
Have you seen that cube pillow that's out there?
I have not. Oh, the one where they sleep like this?
Well, it's like it's literally a pillow, but it's shaped like a cube rather than being flat and round and stuff like that. So it's meant to have that angular connection right there that you're describing. And I'd seen it on the commercials, but I hadn't, until now, I hadn't heard a chiropractor talk about this is actually something you should look into.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always trial and error with everything. So.
Yeah. So what about standing?
Standing is, you should try to maintain the ear over shoulder, over hip, over ankle as best you can. So when you see yourself from the side, you got to pull that back just a little bit. But you don't have to rotate around the thoracic cage, right? Where you're like up like this. A lot of people do that. You want to just kind of bring it back as naturally as possible as you can. Because it takes tension off the spinal cord.
One way that I really like to think about it is like having a string tied from the top of my pole to the ceiling, and like I'm being pulled up. That kind of helps me keep some pretty good posture.
Correct. Sounds great. Keep your ear over your shoulder over your hip, over your ankle as best you can. And that'll help you maintain that 70-30 weight distribution of the larger parts of your body on the smaller parts of your spine.
Thank you so much for going through that. That's some really good tips. The sitting, standing, and sleeping, kind of the three main things that a lot of people spend most of their time doing.
And driving.
And driving, yes. It's a little bit hard to sit on the front and put your knees down with that, but
you're not going to do that. What the big one for driving is that the headrests nowadays are like this, which are really bad for you, by the way. I have mine go back a little bit, and then every time I come to a stoplight or a stop sign, you're supposed to go 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, right? I hold my head, I push back, hold it on into the seat, and go 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, look around, drive. So it's training.
It's a good idea. So what about for someone who is looking to get into a similar career? Do you have any thoughts for someone who's either getting started or looking around and they're interested in chiropractic work?
So, funny story. I and Christopher, Dr. Christopher, were part of, for about 20 years, the Beaverton Health Careers Program. And what that is that students would come through our office and shadow us for a day or two or a week. And one of those students ended up coming to work for us as a chiropractic assistant. And since that time, he has gone on to chiropractic college, and now he practices in downtown Portland in his own practice with his wife. So I'd say if somebody wanted to get into chiropractic and they had a school that had a health careers program, do that. Shadow a chiropractor. And you can call us up. We're really nice people, generally overall. I mean, we are blue collar workers with a white collar education. That's what I like to call us, because we're so hands-on. But we just happen to know where to put those hands in a great way to make you feel so much better. Yeah.
That's awesome. I know my experience with chiropractors and specifically you guys have been very helpful. And like you said, that's a good way of putting it. Blue collar workers with white collar knowledge or white collar education.
That's it.
It's a great way of putting it.
Don't worry, we're still paying for it too.
So are there specific like specialties or any things that someone might look into within chiropractic work? Or is it kind of as you get into it, you kind of just find your own niche, or what would you say to that?
First, after general chiropractic education, which is exactly the same as medical education, including cadaver work and anatomy and physiology, we turn to physical medicine, and regular MDs turn towards drugs and surgery. So as you would go into residency for becoming let's say, neurologist, you start postgraduate education and you could do neurology. There's lots of chiropractors out there that do chiropractic neurology. There's orthopedics, there's sports specific sports medicine, and every team in the NFL has a chiropractor. Every Olympic team in the world has a chiropractor. There are Olympic chiropractors. Let's see, sports teams, almost all sports teams that I know of and that most people know of have a team chiropractor. So there's pediatrics. My son, when he was born, he actually was I actually had a 72-hour birthing process because he was stuck in the birth canal. I like to say I got a D in birthing because the canal didn't open up. It was a D. I was like, darn it. But he got stuck. And so in the emergency room, we had an emergency C-section. The doc was just grabbing his feet and pulling him out like this. And I could hear the midwives, because we had started with midwives, scream at her, the doctor at the time in the emergency room, push the head. Effectively, she had dislocated my son's neck, and it looked like he had his head on backwards. And so I never got to hold him. I never got to do any of the fun things that you would do after you work so hard to have a baby. I didn't see him for I think it was 24 hours after, but he was shuffled off to a side room after they determined that he was likely going to die because his head was back over here as a result of this traumatic birth. And a midwife and Christopher went into that side room, and there was the time of death nurse, and all of his machines were starting to head downwards. And Misty turns to Christopher and says, "Do what you do, man." And he's like, "What do I do?" And she said, "Do what you do, man." Total hippie. Pretty awesome midwife, by the way. And he was like, "Okay." And he put his hands on Aiden's neck, and he was just like, "Oh, this is actually off the condyles." His head was off the condyles. And he's like, "Oh my gosh." And so he put him in his opposite posture and gave him a tiny little whack like this. He took it and he went, and then Aiden's head went, and then he went, and then boom, all of the meconium that was impacted in his lungs, which is what they couldn't suck out, otherwise they'd have torn his lungs, came flying out his nose, all over Christopher, all over the machines. And so Christopher makes fun of me because for the 5 years after that, anytime Aiden would fall and cry, I'd be like, "Oh my God, what do I do?" And Chris would be like, I saw shit fly out of his face." So he never worried about him. But that in and of itself, that's what doctors who do pediatric work, which is what we used to do. We're also certified as pediatric practitioners. That's what we do. We also have something called the Warner's technique. So we can turn babies in while they're still inside their mothers, if they're not turned.
That's
Are you okay?
That's just, there's so many emotions going on in that story. I'm like, one, I didn't know where it was going. But two, that's horrible, but also incredible the way it ended. And Christopher, Christopher's your husband, correct? It's
He'll never not be
amazing.
my husband. He's a pinch hitter.
That's amazing. Like your son was literally like about to be declared dead,
Yeah. They
but
couldn't set
because
them
of
to kill him.
the work that your husband was able to do, chiropractic work, essentially, like readjusting everything on the spinal column that needed to
Put
happen.
his skull back on his spine.
Literally put his head back on, in a way,
Yeah.
like put his head back on his spine
Yeah.
in the operating room. It was like, holy cow, that is.
And you know what all the docs did after they heard him
What?
cry? They ran back into the time of the death room, and they came back in and said, "Can you teach us this?"
Huh.
And Christopher said, "Yeah, after you go to chiropractic college."
Huh. That's incredible.
Yeah, we've taken care of babies earlier on in our career. We had a baby who came in with a half mashed face, you know, like this. And through good PT care and Christopher adjusting this baby, his face grew back.
Wow.
I know, it's cool.
What was the issue with the face, that it
The
was
baby
like that?
didn't
And then
move a
how
lot.
did you fix?
It didn't move a lot inside the mother's womb. And so it just stayed on one side and started to like just be like this when it was born. It took about 2-3 months, and then he returned to normal. But yeah,
So
that's
you
cranial work.
alleviated whatever was keeping the baby from moving around a lot, and then the PT was able to kind of strengthen those muscles, and those two things together was able to essentially kind of regrow that portion of the baby's face.
The part of the face was so mashed and wasn't able to express its innate intelligence that the jaw was out of line. So Christopher fixed that. The upper neck was like, you know, cranked. And so when nerves aren't able to express themselves fully, because what do nerves do? They're a super highway. The brain, efferent, it tells the organ, you got to do this. The skin, you got to do this. It gathers information from down there.
Communication wires.
It back. Yeah. And so if your nerves are whacked because of misalignments in your spine, guess what? That information's garbled. So if you can align and you can get that super highway working, then everything naturally comes to its ultimate homeostasis or its ultimate balance.
That's both of those things are, I mean, I'm a father of a 3-year-old, and that, like, both of those situations, it's amazing. It's amazing what you guys were able to do, and so amazing it being your own child. Obviously it's amazing in any case, but like when it's your own child that you're able to save literally off of that table. And is your son doing well now? Is everything okay now?
He's 19 and graduating high school and driving me crazy. So yeah, he's great.
That is amazing. That is such an amazing story, and such an amazing testimony of your work, like the value and the importance and the literal life-saving capability of being a chiropractor, of being specifically a pediatric trained chiropractor. I don't know the wording for all of that, but all of those things together, to be able to combine those things literally in life-saving ways, that's incredible.
Yep, it's what we do.
So wow. So being a mother, being an entrepreneur, being a chiropractor, like doing all of these things together, you must be an incredibly busy person. How do you maintain your own health, specifically psychological health, but even just holistically? How do you maintain your own health while you're doing all this?
You know, being busy and having systems in place. Like, I know I need coffee in the morning. I know that I need protein in the morning, so I have to eat an egg. You know, just simple things throughout the day to make sure that I maintain my own health. Are like, I take high quality vitamins, things of that nature. I eat a very holistic diet, Mediterranean diet, like I said. I have relationships that are deep and wholesome, that if I am, when you're creating like a website, something breaks every day. It's awful. So, that finding a community that supports me in that way has been huge. But really, it's just, I come to everything with an optimistic end goal, including my health. And so that is how I maintain it, to be honest.
Break that down for me.
Sure. So an optimistic end goal. I believe that my product is going to save the world, period. Full stop. I believe it wholeheartedly. Universe is aligned. I feel like this is what I was here put on the earth for. Just having that, in and of itself is a unifying internal force that causes me to say, I got to stay healthy to see this through. It's not for me, it's for others. I gotta make sure that I don't just do mother. I also take care of my mom. So I am a sandwich generation gal. I have my animals. I got to take care of them too. But it's the give, and I'm out. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock, so I get 9 hours of sleep, 8 hours of sleep. I hydrate like a crazy person. Like, look, there's my head. This is the size of my water. So, I tell the truth as often as possible. I don't try to give myself baggage. Right? I do all the things I need to do for myself personally that I know that I can bring 100,000% every day to every person I meet, and every animal in this instance too. So that's how I do it.
That is such an incredible list, and such a multi-dimensional list. And I would love for you to perhaps go into what you've learned about the multi-dimensionality of your own health, and how do you maintain it. And I assume that bleeds over into how you maintain other people's health through your work. But like, how do you understand the connection of all those different things, and how they affect each other, and the improvement of one and the bleeding over into the other? Like, how do you understand that?
Really, that's from chiropractic college. I'll be honest. So it's the understanding of how innate intelligence, how autosuggestion can rule your life. And so there's something called
does that mean like running on autopilot?
Autosuggestion is you're telling yourself you're sick. Autosuggestion is you're telling yourself, I'm fine. Autosuggestion.
I can absolutely attest to that, both in personal experience and in like the work that me and my wife do, that it's absolutely those inner thoughts, and those, whether or not you agree with, or whether or not you kind of embrace that, like, I am sick, I'm going to deal with this forever, there's your absolutely critical, those programs that run in your head, and the connection, because the programs in your head run the programs in your body, and
exactly.
That's all connected. And so anyway, I love that you're talking about this. Please keep going.
Yeah, so your innate intelligence is the connection to the universe, that feeling in the back of your neck, the hair standing up, that you know what, this person's telling me that I need to do this person's telling me I need to do this. What is my gut telling me, right? What is my personal inside? What makes the connection to me on the outside work? Just staying cognizant of that. And in chiropractic college, the concept of innate intelligence is, trust your innate. Go with what your innate tells you to do. Some days I'm like, Christopher, I need to eat meat. It's like need protein, stuff like that. That's simple, good cognitive understanding of your own personal systems. And understanding that by maintaining those systems, no matter how you do it, is right for you, and just being fine with that, being fine with it, being accepting of the systems in your body that work the way that they work, and how you personally know how to maintain them. I mean, that's kind of a roundabout answer, but it's
No, I love it, because it's actually it's such a huge area that I think people need to be aware of, and that there's, especially in the West, I think we tend to be very hyper focused on the like the frontal brain, your conscious awareness, and developing that to a razor's edge, and always focused on your conscious knowledge and your ability to A plus B equals C and all of that stuff. But there's so much that goes on behind the curtain, behind the scenes, in your body, in your mind, in your heart, all of that stuff, that learning to tune in, learning to partner with that, learning to get rid of things that aren't helpful there, learning to get good things that learning to help the good things thrive, all of that. And even something that I've found is even learning how to use that in learning, just in being able to learn new topics. I've found that as I have kind of embraced that side of me, where I'm aware that a lot of my awareness is not conscious, but I can learn to tap into that. And the way that I have learned in academia and YouTubing and all that has changed, where my focus is on exposure. Like I'll play videos on like twice, 3 times, 4 times the speed, but as long as I can take in the information at some point, it's like that subconscious, or that awareness that you talk about in the background, it will bring it up at the right time, and that gut instinct that you talk about comes into play. So it's such a huge and important field of people's life that is really unexplored, at least in the West, that I've found. So I love that you're kind of elaborating that, and how in like physical health and how those things are so interconnected and important.
Do you know who in most people's lives identifies with that innate intelligence immediately and acts upon that innate intelligence immediately?
Who?
The family dog.
That's interesting.
Boom. There it is.
Yeah.
They know. They know.
They are incredibly empathetic and tuned in creatures.
Intuitive,
Yes.
instinct, and innate intelligence, and intuitiveness, and the fountainhead of whatever created us. All of that come from the same place in my thought processes. And if we can come to any creations that we put together, whether it's a discussion, whether the creation is a physical thing, whether the creation is the unseen thing that we just haven't noticed yet, all of those things, if we can manifest the good that comes out of that universal intelligence, dude, we're good. We're real good.
It is all connected, and learning how to tune into that, and with intentionality, push that in a positive direction in the way that you were made to do so, it's incredible.
Yep.
And I personally, I love watching that light come on for people when they have that moment on the ship where you have the chiropractor fix your neck and suddenly you know your purpose in the universe. I love helping people figure that out. It's my bread and butter. I love it.
Yep. You turn the light on.
Yeah. So what are some, we're coming to the end of this, unfortunately, because I'd love this to keep going. But what are some of the like best resources that people can look around for online, podcasts, channels, books, whatever it is? What are some things that you found helpful, that your clients have found helpful, that you could bring up for people?
Sure. So in the digital realm, since I'm now I built my own website, did all that coding and stuff that I've never done before. I've started to follow people like Dan Koe, Koe. He's a great content creator. I really enjoy him. Off the digital world, there are some go-tos. I brought some books. The go-tos that I love. This is called the way of the Peaceful Warrior, by Dan Millman. This is an old book in the world, so to speak. I don't really remember when it was started up, but it is it's an outwardly look of the inside of you, but with the inside view. Sounds weird, but it's how you find your you and what connections you need to find those yous. And it's got a lot of practical stuff in here, a lot of good movement therapy stuff in there. So I don't know if you've read this. Have you looked at this?
Not. It rings a bell, but I don't believe I've read it. No.
It's a win book. It's one you want to, if you were looking for how that connection to the universe works, that book really clarifies it for you in your own terms. I am always reading something new. And this one is called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And I've only just started to crack this. It's only like just started. But it's really me getting back to my naval officership, I believe. And what do I mean by that? The art of delegation. So, looking to get back to the art of delegation. And then something else, just a fun one. This one is pretty intense but wonderful. It's Understanding the Human Canine Connection, and it is called The Purest Bond, by Jen Golbeck and Stacy Colino. She's a veterinarian, and is basically she's defined and undefined the bond between animal and human. So this one is a good one too. So those are the three that I'm rereading again. And there's that. There you go.
And what about any resources for the chiropractor side of things? If people are wanting to either learn about the field or learn about their own health, what are some resources they might look into?
So there are lots of different chiropractic websites out there. But I like research. Research and I are friends. So you could go to what is it called? Not posture.com, I believe. That's a good one. Our website, the letter C, chiropractic first, so C1PDX.com is a cornucopia of information on chiropractic, on how veterans can get care. And so I really like that one. There are a couple of scholastic websites out there, education facilities that have good websites on what chiropractic is. New York Chiropractic College has an amazing website. I believe it's called the Northeastern College of Health Science now. Their website is pretty good. They also have, they're no longer just a chiropractic college anymore. There's oriental medicine, there's acupuncture, there's physical therapy, there's different types of massage therapy schools, all amalgamated into one. Also, they also have like a big focus on anatomy and physiology in there. So that's for people that are more interested in the nuts and bolts of how things work. That's a good one. Also, if you're interested in going to a chiropractic college, that's a great one to go to as well.
Well, we have been on quite the journey today from the Gulf and translation operations and being an international badass to the Pacific Northwest and literally saving people's lives off of the death table, literally pulling them off through chiropractic work, and so many fascinating stories and resources that you brought up. Thank you so much. Your perspective is beautiful and unique, and I love how you bring all these things together for a more holistic health. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.